Hi, it's Becky and welcome to Bee Mom. We're changing the name of our channel to Bee Mom Cooking, and we're going to be focusing on cooking things. What we're going to do is pick a food, and then I'm going to show you how I prepare it and show you a variety of ways that I use it in some dishes. And hopefully that'll give you some good ideas for healthy eating. And we're going to cover the whole gamut. We're going to cover side dishes. We're going to cover main dishes with meat. We're going to cover main dishes without meat. We're going to cover some delicious desserts that we're going to make in a variety of ways. And it should be a lot of fun. So today we are starting with ground beef. And when I prepare ground beef, I like to put seasonings in and things in it that I think I'm going to use in almost any dish I do. So some of the things that I always put in are this group of seasonings right here. The other things I add are, I'm going to put in a pepper. Now I'm making 3 pounds and I'm just going to give it a little peppery flavor, so I'm only doing this one. And my personal favorite are the red, yellow, and orange peppers. Some people like green peppers. They have a little more of a bitter flavor. So if you like a variety of flavors, you can add that. But this is my favorite, so I'm going to throw yellow in mine. And I'm going to put in a couple of white onions. So I'm just gonna chop those up for you here for a minute and get them in my handy dandy bowls. And then I'm gonna cook up the ground beef for you. And then I'll show you in a little bit a variety of dishes that we're gonna use it in. So thanks for joining me. One thing I did is I have a damp paper towel, and that will keep my cutting board flat. So let's start with an onion. Now when I'm cutting up an onion, I like to think about the size that I want to use based on what I'm going to make. And so for some things you want to cut it up super small so that, you know, it gives it a different kind of a flavor. And for some things you want big chunks so that you can really munch on it. So these are kind of medium because that's what we're going to put in our meat, because then you can, most things can use whatever size. So that's why we're doing that. So I'll just finish this up and then we'll move on to the pepper. There we go. There's our onions. Now we got our bowl for our pepper. Everybody does peppers different. I like to go around in a circle. Meat back up to where I started. I'm going to show you my trash plate here. And I twist it. And that gets a lot of the seeds out. Nice thing with these peppers, if you bang them, that gets a lot of the seeds out. And now I started with the onions, and usually I end with the onions because of that. You know how they do make your eyes tear? But I just started with them this time. So now we're going to cut this up. We cut it in half. And then lay it flat. And it makes it easier to cut. And we're just going to cut it into chunks, just like the onions. So, I have my peppers all cut up. Now we'll go over to the stove and cook them up. Now, one of the main keys to cooking is preparing. So we have some olive oil. I'm going to put just about a tablespoon, not much, in there to go with the ground beef. I have my onions and my peppers, and I have a flat top electric stove, so that means I can set stuff on it and it's okay. And I showed you the picture of my spices before, but what I like to do to prepare is go ahead and get everything opened up so that it's ready to shake and sprinkle while it's cooking. Now, the ones I always use a lot, especially with ground beef, is the soy sauce, which substitutes for salt, and some black pepper. Salt and pepper are good. Then I always add some garlic powder, and I always add some onion powder, because those go in pretty much anything, even if I'm making spicy Mexican or Italian. But then just to give it a little extra flavor, this is the one you can get from Target, is the Good and Gather thing. It's the same as the salt-free. Darn it, I forgot the name of them. So I like these, and they're good, and they're a little less expensive. And so now I'm going to go ahead, cut up our meat. So we have it right here, and pop it in and cook it. And I'm going to use my handy dandy meat masher thing, and I'll show you how we add spices and everything as we go. I'm going to add the vegetables early on, so I'm going to turn on the oven right there, and let's cook this up. All right. Okay. Now, you always want to take a second and wash your hands after you deal with raw meat. So, I did that, and now I am cooking up my big batch of meat here. So, because there's a lot, it's going to take a while to cook down and mash up. So, I'll just keep working on that while it's doing it. So we've got the meat starting to cook, and it's browning up. And right now it's just a little bit brown, so we're going to add some of our spices, our soy sauce. When that cooks in, that'll add a lot of flavor. And our garlic. You get that garlic, the powdered spices, you get them good and wet, and then they cook in really well. And our onion powder, and our lemon pepper for flavor. There we go. Oh, that smells so good. Some of my favorite. There. You see how it's browning up? Now I have mine on about medium high. If you want to let it cook slower, that's fine. But because I put those vegetables in early, they're starting to soften up and add flavor to the meat and cook down. Woo! This smells so good. So we'll cook this up, and then in a little bit I'll show you what we're going to do with it and some different things we can put it in. casseroles and salads and soups and chili. And I'll show them to you. With my husband and I, we're the only ones in our house right now because we're empty nesters, and so we can do about 3 pounds of meat, can be 3 to 4 meals. So it's great. For your large family, you might need to do a lot, and then you can cook this up and also make something in the crock pot with it too. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll show you a crock pot meal in my little crock pot. Whoop. And I cleaned this stove nice, so it's okay. We'll just pop that back in. There we go. Ooh, see how brown that's? Oh, so pretty. So pretty. There we go. All right, so we'll let this cook up and then we'll make something with it. So, all right, here's what he did. I waited for the meat to cool, and then I'll show you that in a second. And then I packaged up this. I'm going to put, it's the smaller one, I'm going to put it in our refrigerator, and then we can use this for taco salads. And this one I'm going to put in our freezer, and then I'm going to use some of it because I divided the meat that I cooked into four parts. So this is 1 part, and this is 2 more parts, and there's 1 part still in the pot, which I'll show you in a minute. When I load the chili stuff in, I'll show it to you. But this I'm going to use and put in the freezer, and then I'll pull it out later when I want to use it for like spaghetti and stuff like that. And so that's what that's for. So we'll put those where they belong. And here's the 1 part that's left. And we'll look at this, and I'll show you this in 1 second. So we have our pot with the 1 part of meat in it. And then I already, remember how I told you I prepared ahead? So I opened all of this stuff. We have our canned tomatoes, our beans that we're going to use, and then the rest of it is all for seasoning. We got chili powder here. We got the soy sauce here, which we add a little more because we're adding this extra stuff. It adds flavor to the whole thing. I like a little like cocoa flavor in mine. This is chili sauce and barbecue sauce. This is a special barbecue sauce. Those will add a little sweetness to it, which will make the cocoa taste good. And then this is just some cayenne pepper to have a little cayenne pepper. And you know what I'm thinking? What I forgot about was the ground cumin. So I'm gonna pull that out. Oops, I'll pull that out now. All right, and open it up so we get things opened up. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and turn this on, and I'm just gonna turn it on low this time. See, it's down. Oops, that's the wrong one. I'm gonna turn it on low right there. And then we add the tomatoes. Okay. And let me see. Let me see if I can get you more into the pot here. All right, so now you can kind of see in the pot a little bit better. So that's the tomato. Oh, whoop! That's the tomatoes. And I'm not going to drain the beans. I am choosing to use black beans. You can use pinto beans. You can use kidney beans, it's traditional. You can use pork and beans. So that's that. Now that we've got all that in there, this is what we're going to do. Now, for chili powder, I'm just going to use a little bit, and just, can you see? I am about that much for the whole thing. Actually, 2 of those. 2 of those for the whole thing. That's good. And for the cocoa, we just put 1 I'm using one of the a small like cereal spoon, which is a teaspoon. So this works out to about a tablespoon, which is really all you need because it's just a little amount of chili. It's not a bunch. We'll get our soy sauce in there. Get our cumin in there. Give it a little kick. Get our, now, we're gonna watch this. Cayenne pepper. My cayenne pepper doesn't have a thing on it, so I'm gonna measure it like I did the chili powder, but really, we are not overly spicy people. That is about a half a teaspoon. That's all I'm putting in because we have digestive issues, so we want to be careful. But your family might like a ton, and if they do, oh yeah, you load that up. You load that up because that's where your heat's going to be. Now, because it's a small amount, see how it's not, the pot's not real full with the chili, I'm just going to add a little bit of the chili sauce. There's a lot you can do with the chili sauce. So it's about a third of this jar. This is a 12-ounce jar, and just about a third of it. That's all I'm using for it. And then the barbecue sauce, I'm going to put a couple of tablespoons of that in. 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. You can measure that if you want to, but no need if you don't want to. And for last, just to give it a little flavor, I'm adding some cinnamon sugar because that gives it a lot of really good flavor. If you have never had cinnamon in yours, oh my gosh, it's so good. And you can do a couple of things. You can put dry cinnamon in, or you can make a packet in like the same thing you'd make for tea. You know, if you use tea leaves, you use like you can make a tea bag packet. And you can put a cinnamon stick and some allspice in there and put the packet in and let the packet sit and soak. All right, and that is what our chili looks like. Ooh, look at. So I'm making the chili, and then the day that we have taco salads, you can also use the chili, or you can eat the chili like that. And so that is one thing I'm putting on it. So this is this. So in later days, when I make the meals with the other things, then I will show that to you. And I'm going to turn this up a little bit, and then we'll talk 1 second here. So in later days, I'm going to back up because I've watched this on the big screen, and if I'm too close, I'm like right in your face. So I'm going to back up. We're good. All right. I have the other meats that are in the fridge and the freezer. And so on the other days when I make those meals, I'll go ahead and film that and show you what I'm making with them. And you can see, did you see how fast that chili went together? I just popped it all in there because I chose to use canned, because the other thing you can do is you can get your dried beans, and you can do that. You can cut up your own tomatoes and use fresh tomatoes and just cook it a little longer. You can do that. But you don't have to do any of that. You can use your canned stuff just like I did. That tends to work better for me. And then you put your spices in. Sometimes I also add a little honey or a little maple syrup to add some sweetness. So you can do that. If you do that, I would cut back on how much barbecue sauce you add, because you don't want it too sweet. Or you can like swap it out, use that instead. It gives it a little bit of a different flavor when you use the actual sweetener things like honey or maple syrup instead of barbecue sauce. So that's why I like the barbecue sauce, because I think it complements the tomatoes really well. The other thing you can do if you like a more savory type chili is not to add the sweeter things, but then add also a little bit of salsa or pico de gallo and cook that in there with it. Ooh, and that gives it a little bit of a different flavor. You can also cut up fresh jalapenos. So there's a bunch you could do for the chili. But you see how fast? Because we had already cooked the meat. 5 minutes, and we got that chili done. So you'll see with the other meals how fast those go too. And that'd be great. All right. Good morning. This is my coffee. I thought I'd show you how nice it is to have a nice breakfast because you already made the meat. I'm gonna use some cheese. This is my favorite kind of cheese. I'm putting that in my eggs. So let me just show you this really quickly. It's the beauty of this is that it's really quick. So see, I have my pan, and I've got my egg and my cheese that I already shredded a little bit. So I just want a little bit, and I pulled out my salt and pepper. And here is that lovely ground beef we made yesterday, and see what a nice breakfast I can have. So we already cooked the ground beef. So I'm just gonna take a little of this and put it in my pan. And then instead of just having, you know, a granola bar or something like that, I can have an actual breakfast with some good, yummy, healthy protein and use all those good things we put in there. So we're just gonna let this warm up. Keep sipping the coffee. Here we go. It's kind of cloudy where we live today. I hope it's nice where you live. Yesterday was nice. We had a nice warm day for the first time in a long time yesterday. And I went outside in the evening and made myself a nice light cocktail with some ginger ale and some wine, and oh, it was so good to just sit out there in the beautiful weather. So the meat's getting heated up, and so all you have to do is heat the meat up. And can you hear it? See? 2 minutes and 23 seconds right now. Yeah. Now, some people like to crack their egg in something else just to make sure there's no, putting the cheese in too, make sure there's no shell in what you're doing. And you can do that. But I don't usually find that there's a lot of shells in what I make. So we're just going to add a little more salt and a little more pepper because of the egg. There we go. And it took me maybe 1 or 2 minutes to get out the ingredients to show you. I turn the pan off. I'm using paper plates because I have things going on where I can't stand well right now, so I'm just doing little bits at a time. Oop. Ladies and gentlemen, in less than 5 minutes, you have breakfast. So, there's idea number 2. We made chili last night, and we have wonderful quick eggs this morning. Hope your day is good too. We'll make one more thing before we end our little video. So we're into our last thing. Remember, we cut up the meat So when I get this dish in the oven, then we'll talk a little bit about the rest of the meat, because I had said we're only going to do one more, but I thought of something else I can tell you about that we can do. All right, so here's what I have here. Remember we made that chili? We made that chili and put it in this container here. So what we're going to do is I have a pan that's sprayed, and I am going to take the chili. Whoops, let me show you. And I've got chili, and then I've got some cheese that I shredded, and you could buy shredded cheese if you want, but we had a couple of really good cheeses that we got for like Christmas and stuff, and so we shredded those up. Yummy. And then the other thing I used was according to the package, I made a box of Jiffy cornbread mix, and I'm gonna put that on top. I saw another recipe of somebody that put it on the bottom, but I like it on top, and I like everything to bake together. So let's build this thing. Okay, here we have our chili, and we're just gonna put the chili in the bottom. See how easy this is? Okay. And then I give it a little shimmy to kind of even it out. See how it looks kind of flat there? Then what I like to do is, you can put the cheese on top if you want, but I like to be like a barrier between the cheese. Oh, look at this. Oh, this looks so good. And the cornbread. So that gives it a kind of cheesy cornbready flavor. Some people like that, cheese and corn. I saw one video where one lady put a can of cream corn in her Jiffy cornbread mix. And I thought that was a delicious possible idea. That was about a cup to a cup and a half of cheese. And see, it kind of filled the whole thing. Whoops, I tilted it to show you. It's probably a bad idea. All right, last bit. See how fast this is going? Look at this. Now I made up the cornbread. So here's the cornbread. And we're just gonna pour that right on top. I'm using a spatula to make sure we get every last little bit out. And you just keep it moving while you're pouring to try to get it on the whole thing. There we go. All right. Okay. Now, I'm just gonna go pop this in the oven. After the casserole comes out of the oven, then I will take a picture of it and I will put that in here so you can see what the finished casserole looks like. Now, when you're making just the cornbread, it says to cook for like 25 or 30 minutes, but because we also have all that wonderful chili and stuff that we put underneath, because with the ground beef, it's already cooked. There's your key. And so I put that in for 45 minutes, and that should give it plenty of time to cook. And then we have, remember, our leftover ground beef from before. And on another day, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this, and I can add like salsa to it or barbecue sauce or something, and then we can make taco salads with that. And if I had chosen not to use all the chili to make the casserole like I did, then you can also put chili on with the lettuce and some tomatoes and cheese, and some people like to crumble up tortilla chips on top and make taco salad that way. It's so good. So you can do that, or you can do just the ground beef. Another idea, if you add, you can either buy, they sell something called Manwich in the grocery store. So you could either buy a can of that, or you can buy a can of tomato paste. So you put this in the pan, you put a can of tomato paste in, put your spices, you know, if you like garlic powder, if you like chili powder, you know, a little bit of salt, pepper, put that in the pan and a little bit of barbecue sauce. 1 can, use the tomato sauce can, fill it up at least halfway or to all the way with water. You put that in, you cook that up till the sauce thickens up, and then you have sloppy joes. If you've never had those are good. You can get all these different buns. My favorite are the brioche buns. Oh, so good. So you could put that on there. So there's a couple more ideas to use with your ground beef. And in order to do this, you cook up a bunch of ground beef, 3 to 5 pounds of ground beef. You have meals all week. So if you cook, here's a hint, if you cook a bunch of ground beef and some chicken all at the same time, you can do the chicken on the stove in like a pot of water or something. Then you can like alternate and not just have ground beef all week. So, because some of those ideas like the taco salad is really good with chicken too. So that is our ground beef stuff. Now, if this is helpful for you, please subscribe and click that like button. That's a big help to me. And I love your comments. If you have comments of what kind of ideas you have or what you might like to see, put them in there, and I would love to hear about that, because I can try to do different things. Just because we did ground beef now doesn't mean we can't circle back around and do some new ideas. So this is really great. And hey, if this is your first time to my channel, some of the other things are a little bit different, but that's okay. We're starting on this with Bee Mom Cooking, and we're just gonna keep going. And I really appreciate you guys and enjoy cooking.